What's going on, everyone? Episode 62 of Locker Talk Live, coming to you on a Wednesday, one day away from the start of the state semifinals in UIL 2A through 6A. And I have the Houston crew with me today, back after a little bit of a hiatus on the show, but they've been busy with tons of stuff, as you can clearly see on our website, VYPE.com. Definitely go check it out. Let's bring them in now. Let's start with Matt. Matt, first off, I know you haven't been on in a while, so just make sure you're off mute. I know you're on mute there during the little countdown. So, Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. What's going on, Josh Dove? Just doing it down here in Houston. Great. I like this time of year because, this is when the real football happens.
Yeah, it really is, right? I mean, we're less than a week away now, at this time, 1A will have kicked off by now. So we're right on the cusp, less than a week away from state happening. Josh, how about yourself? How are things in your neck of the woods?
It's the Wild Wild West, man. I'm just saying. We're a week away from state football starting at AT&T Stadium. We're a week away from early National Signing Day, which has become kind of wild and crazy because of all the coaching moves and decommitments. And I was just tweeting a second ago, CJ Dumas from Katy Pato, who's previously committed to Prairie View A&M, has put himself back on the market. Of course, Prairie View A&M's head coach just got hired, I believe, somewhere. He just got hired at Southern University, I believe. I think that's the move that was made there. So a lot of coaching moves happening, recruiting, but big thing right now is Texas High School Football Playoffs. We've got 5 Houston teams left in the big dance. How many can dance their way to AT&T Stadium next week, though, is the question.
They definitely have some tough competition. But before we talk about that, let's talk about, I guess, somewhat of the breaking news in Texas high school football, and that's the realignment numbers were released today. And I don't know if y'all have seen this yet. The most shocking, or I guess maybe not shocking, but biggest one that people have mentioned so far is Highland Park is going to be moving up to 6A. I know it's a Dallas school, but that's kind of big news that Highland Park, after all these years, is finally going to be moving up to 6A. Just initial thoughts. Josh, I'll come to you first because I saw you raise your eyebrows when I said that.
Highland Park has dominated Class 5A for all the years. I mean, I'm assuming this news came out at 9:30 this morning. By this evening, Highland Park will probably have a board meeting to build a second high school to get them back down to 5A for the 2024 realignment. Highland Park across the board has been really good in football. I think about team tennis. They've dominated that section as well of sports. Golf, they've dominated. So it's be interesting. They move up with the big boys to Class 6A. Be interesting what district they put them in. But that's probably, like you said, that's the biggest news. Highland Park moving up from 5A to 6A. There's quite a few Houston schools too. New Caney is going to be moving up from 5A to 6A as well. I think Cleveland is also going up to 6A. There's a few others around Houston that are going to be making the jump as well.
Matt, what about you? Any thoughts on this from your side, neck of the woods?
Well, this is a political thing. It's a lot of gerrymandering going on. But I'm kind of surprised about Highland Park just because, they've been a 6A really for a while now. Because you can really manipulate the numbers in the snapshot sometimes. But they're one of the biggest 5A schools, and that means success. They got great players. They got great coaching. But they played in 5A. Will it be a big difference? I think it will be a big difference as they move to 6A.
Yeah, definitely, and it'll be interesting to see where they'll line up in district. We'll find that out in February. A couple of Shayna put out an article, so definitely if you haven't gone there yet, go to VYPE.com. Shayna put out an article about this. A couple of other schools, Manor from Austin area moving up to 6A. All San Antonio ISD schools will be in 5A D2, and like you said, Josh, the New Caney and stuff. So definitely check it out. Shana has that article on VYPE.com. But let's move into talk Texas high school football. As you mentioned, in the Houston area, 5 schools are left, and some of these are great matchups. I mean, we got a matchup from last year, Crosby versus Liberty Hill. We got North Shore versus Lake Travis. We got Katy versus Westlake. All big-time matchups. I have some key questions for you, but before we get into this, let's just talk about some of these matchups. Josh, I'll start with you. Just walk us through some of these Houston schools, and maybe which of the 5 remaining have the best shot, do you think, to make it to state?
The headliner, of course, is going to be Katy versus Westlake. You have 2 defending state champions facing off against each other. You have the 6A D1 champ in Westlake from last year, the 6A D2 champ in Katy. They're both undefeated. Both have talent all across the board. Of course, Cade Klubnik leads that Westlake team. He's committed to Clemson. I mean, Dabo Sweeney came down and saw him in person last week. That's how bad Clemson wants to see him. Is when Dabo Sweeney is in the building to watch you play, you know they want you bad. So that's probably the headliner of the weekend. You've got Todd Dodge, who's going to retire after the season. He takes on Gary Joseph. There's D1 talent all across the board. That's really the headliner of the weekend. The other big game for me is actually still at McLean Stadium, is Tomball taking on Denton Guyer. Can Tomball continue to ride this wave of momentum that they've captured since the end of the regular season? You got to remember, Tomball finished 4th in their district. They had to beat Klein in the final game of the regular season just to get into the playoffs. And since they've gotten in, they've won 4 straight. They're in the state semifinals. Chance for them to go play for a state championship.
Matt, turn it over to you now. Who's the one out of all 5 teams? Who's the one you think can get there?
From Houston, I don't think anybody gets there.
Really?
Honestly,
So you don't think Crosby gets over Liberty Hill?
No, I think Liberty Hill has it in for Crosby. That was a wild game last year. Josh was at that game, and I think Liberty Hill, they made just a lot of mistakes at the end there, I believe. And I think Liberty Hill gets it done this year. Another interesting game I think is going to be a wild one is Duncanville versus Southlake. I mean, those are 2 brands of football. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. I'm really anxious to see how that plays out. Quinn Ewers, bro, what are you thinking, man? He leaves Southlake. He goes to Ohio State. He's in the portal. He's getting re-recruited. He could have been doing this while hanging out with his best buddies playing football. But, hey, by the way, we don't need you. We're in the state semifinals anyways. That's just a weird situation, man. I mean, college football, high school football, college football's a mess right now. We can talk about that later. But I really feel like it's Southlake's going to win. I believe Lake Travis is going to win over North Shore. Again, I fall into this trap sometimes because we're so close to the North Shore program that we're like, man, they got a freshman quarterback. We don't know how good he is. Yes, they do defense really well. This is, when they played a couple of years back, Lake Travis was everybody loved Lake Travis. Like, Lake Travis going to come in and beat North Shore. North Shore killed them physically and just killed them on defense. And Demetrius was there. I just don't think North Shore has the offense to do it. They do have the defense to slow them down. I just don't think they have the offense to go on to the next level.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big keys for that North Shore and Lake Travis games is if Lake Travis can get up on them early, then you're really going to find out what this North Shore team is about. I mean, their whole season has been kind of predicated on their defense, and so what's going to happen when their offense has to rise to the occasion? They have that one loss in their season to Westfield, so we do know that teams can score on them. But Josh, I want to turn it back over to you. Biggest keys to some of the games. Some of the you pick whichever games you want. Talk to me about some of the biggest keys to some of these games this starting tomorrow.
For me, I think first off, I think Katy Paetow is going to get to state. I think they're going to beat Corpus Christi Flower Bluff. Paetow's been scoring points like crazy. I think it's going to be Paetow versus College Station next week at AT&T Stadium for the state championship. They're running back. Jacob Brown is unbelievable, had over 360 yards last week. I think for Paetow, I think they just need to take care of business and not look ahead and overlook Corpus Christi Flower Bluff. I think that could potentially happen. I think you could look past that. I don't think BJ God and company are going to let them do it. The key for Katy, if they want any chance to beat Westlake, is they cannot turn the ball over. They had 3 straight drives where they turned the ball over in the second half against Summer Creek. You can't do that. You can't do that against the Westlake team if you want any chance to beat that team. This is a really good Austin Westlake team. They're a little different than last year. Some have considered them maybe the best Austin Westlake team that there's ever been, which there's been some really good ones. So Katy just can't turn the ball over. And then my other key is Crosby for them. Liberty Hill is going to want to get up for this game. They're going to want to beat Crosby. They know what's coming. Liberty Hill is going to run the ball. They've got 2 running backs that have combined for 3,000 yards. Crosby just can't allow the Liberty Hill run game to take them out of their sync. They've got 2 really good DNs on that Crosby defense, and Tyler Cooper and McCoy Casey. Offensively, Kyron Miles has been playing really well. So I think that's the key for Crosby is just play within yourself, stop Liberty Hill's run. You know what's coming.
How about you, Matt? Let's talk about some of these other games and just keys to victory here. So maybe some that Josh didn't talk about. Any that you want to talk about?
Yeah, stand corrected. I do believe that Pato is going to win. I think they're going to win. They're going to get to state. I think they're going to win state, which is kind of crazy.
You're wearing Pato blue. You're wearing Pato blue right now. So
yes.
I mean, there you go. It's not North Carolina blue. It's Pato blue.
No. So, anyways, North Shore has to kind of bully Lake Travis. They have to do what North Shore does and get really, really physical with them. And if they do that and kind of knock their offense off their mark, as it relates to quarterback, deep passes, is Denver Harris playing? I mean, I think North Shore could win. I just think they're going to have to really disrupt what Lake Travis does on offense. And Duncanville, I think they got to kind of do the same thing. They've got to just get super athletic, press the corners, bring the house on the quarterback, get him off his mark, and that's how I think Duncanville and North Shore would possibly meet again. I don't think that's likely, but if that's me, that's how I'd play it.
And I feel the same way because – oh, yeah, Tomball.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, Tomball's an enigma, man. They're just kind of funny and, they haven't been in this point decades. And Cale Helms is really good at quarterback. They have a very nice offensive line. Their defense is pretty good. They got skills. I mean, they're just good at everything, and they have a great quarterback. I mean, they just haven't been here, so it's so hard to tell. Denton Ryan has, and that's why I think Denton Ryan, if they can get over the big bright lights of where they are and don't think about it, Tomball I think they got a shot, but I think Denton Ryan is just too grizzled and experienced in these type of games.
It's Denton Guyer, just to throw it, but I know that's who you're talking about. Yeah. How about just kind of a throw off and one y'all might not be too familiar with, but it's kind of one of the feel good stories of the Texas high school football playoffs, and that's South Oak Cliff. South Oak Cliff, yeah. Do you think they can get by Lubbock Cooper and then face most likely who we are saying right now Liberty Hill, but could be Crosby as well in the state championship? Matt, I'll start with you.
I tell you what, I mean, this is kind of a movie type year for them. This is a Hollywood movie. No one beats Alita. No one. And that was amazing. And it seems like they have kind of gotten past that. And now they're moving on. I mean, they've got great confidence. And they're really well coached. And they're super athletic. I think if they make it the whole way, I'm buying the rights to that movie because I think it's going to be awesome.
Josh, how about you? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's the thing. They're not only carrying the flag for South Oak Cliff, but they're carrying the flag for Dallas ISD, which has been kind of beat up on over the years. And I think Lubbock Cooper is a really good football program. A lot of people thought early on that they would be here, but I think South Oak Cliff. I mean, you know how bad these kids want to go back to Arlington and play in AT&T Stadium to show that a Dallas ISD team can get there and potentially win a state championship. I think they get there. And they play for a state championship. What a story that would be for Texas high school football and for the Dallas area. When so much about the Dallas area is always about Duncanville and Aledo and South Lake Carroll, and now we get to talk about South Oak Cliff. Just throw them in there. Nice story for them this year.
Yeah, it's a great story. And, they were so COVID really affected, the Dallas ISD. And, man, what they've done in 1 year is really remarkable. And that could be literally the story of the year in the state of Texas.
What's interesting about them too is earlier in the year the head coach says, "Hey, why do you always play Duncanville year in year out?" And he always says, "It's where I can find out where my program stands." They don't win that game, but it's where you can kind of judge his program. And now look at them; they're a win away from the state finals. So love it. And what's interesting about this is, hey, even if they happen to lose and Lubbock, Lubbock Cooper gets in, now you have a Lubbock school getting into the state finals, something you also don't see. So either way, on that 5A-D2 left side of the bracket, you're getting something you normally don't see in the state championships. And that's kind of going to lead me to my next question for you guys is, why do the same teams seem to make the same kind of run year in, year out? For the most part, right? You have those years where, like last year, Lake Travis got bounced in the first round. But by and large, you see these teams year in and year out getting to the, state semis or the state finals. Why do y'all think that is, Matt? I'll start with you. Why is this happening year in and year out for the same schools?
Well, I think it just boils down to one word, and that's culture. These people that run these programs, I mean, we could just take it in Houston. Gary Joseph and John Kay, Katie Northrup. They're the brands of Houston. Okay. Same with Duncanville. Duncanville, super brand. South Lake, super brand. Westlake, Lake Travis. It all starts at the top, the tippy top. Superintendent on down. They're all aligned correctly. And what that means is that they value athletics tremendously in success. So then if you have your superintendent and your principals really valuing that just gives the coach just so many more opportunities. It goes from having athletic periods. I know that sounds small. It's a big deal. Some schools in Texas don't have athletic periods. And then it starts in, the foundation that has been laid. I've seen it firsthand. David Amon from North Shore came from Nimitz High School. He came to North Shore. They're like, bro, North Shore's never been in the playoffs ever since the school opened. And when he got there, the first year they've gotten to the playoffs, and they've never turned back. Why in the world had nobody done that before? They have the talent. It's culture of a community. And I know it's coaches come and go, but it's a lot to do with the community. John Kay knew the culture when he got there. The baton, boom, passed. And he's even improved on the culture. Same with Katie. Mike Johnston, a legend in Katie, passes the torch to Gary Joseph. Gets better with time. He passes the torch to Coach Gott over at Pato. I mean, it's no shock they're having success. He learned from the best. Same goes with these guys in, Lake Travis, Aledo. I mean, God, if that's not a culture, that's Friday Night Lights, come to life, what they do over there. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And once you start winning and the bar is set and the community buys in and the little leagues all want to play at Katy and Aledo and they're running the same things and the coaches come and talk to the younger kids and they're involved in the junior highs, it just builds on itself. And only, I'd say, let's say 20 places in Texas have that magic.
I have a follow-up question, but I want to come to Josh real quick. And Josh, I want to get your input on this as far as why do you think this is that we see this kind of almost year in and year out with a few exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what Matt said to a T. It's culture. It's who the coaches are. I mean, when you go down the list and you think about the coaches that are still in the playoffs, you have Gary Joseph, legend in Texas high school football. You've got John Kay, who has put himself up there as one of the best in high school football. Todd Dodge, legend in high school football. Hank Carter, up there with the legends of high school football. I mean, it's just that. It's who your coaches are and the culture they built and the programs they built. I mean, it's rinse and repeat at these programs for a reason. There's a reason when we get down to this part of the year, we sometimes see the same programs over and over and over. Yes, they have great players. Yes, they have great players that come through there, but it's also the program and the culture that's set. And like Matt said, BJ Gott at Katy Pato, he came from Katy. He's taken the Katy culture, he's taken it into Katy Pato. Now he's got them one win away from playing for a state championship. I mean, if that tells you anything, you look at this one too. Look at Shadow Creek. Brad Butler came from Manville, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he was at Manville when Manville was really good, and he went over to Shadow Creek, and he took the Manville culture and took it to Shadow Creek. And then Shadow Creek had success, and they won a state championship. So it's all about coaching.
One of the best too.
Yeah, you
Kirk
learn
Martin,
from.
he was at Manville and taught Butler, and I mean it's really cool because the coaches do have just so much to do with it. And I got stories on stories to tell you about what I've seen. Just the attention to detail. For instance, when I first started covering North Shore, this is in 2004. Every kid that walked in to the field house every day handed John Kay, who handed to David Amon a what everybody's grade was on every day and what their conduct was like. And I'm telling you, if you were failing or you were being a jerk in class, they grabbed you. They didn't wait, right? They look at that paper and they're grabbing you and they're like, "You come with me." And it's just the attention to detail. I mean, even like how Katie and North Shore and all, they coordinate with their bands, and like how like when a team is right here in the red zone, what they're gonna play. I mean, it's Nick Saban like. I mean, they always talk about the process, and I get like so tired of that term, but it's right.
Matt, you said something earlier about how, when the superintendent starts buying in and all this stuff, and, you say there's kind of a formula, if you will. Why do you think then, if this is working so well for some of these other schools, that kind of some of these schools that maybe you don't see as often in the playoffs or are this deep in the playoffs, why don't they kind of copy that formula? Is it just because maybe some people just don't buy in as much as some of these other schools?
Well, yes. And I could tell you this. Some superintendents are they value different things, and some the principals at schools have massive power. Okay. They often determine who's going to get they often hire the coach. It's not the superintendent and it's not the athletic director. It's the principal. And if don't see the big value of sports, they might be more heavy academic, or they might be arts. There's a lot of schools that are lean toward the arts, and that's okay. But the alignment is just very key, and you find it in some places. And the other piece is this, and this might get me into trouble, okay? But when you have a school, let's say the Woodlands, okay? The Woodlands, they have the same type of kids at your Lake Travis, Westlake, South Lake, Katy. They have those kids. And they're asking themselves, why aren't we every year in a state championship or vying for that? And there's a couple reasons. And it's not due to alignment. It's almost due to the community. Look, when you go to Katy or North Shore or South Lake or Lake Travis, you ain't taking a vacation in the summertime. These people are committed. The parents are committed. The community is so committed to this that they're not taking vacations and going to Europe or going to Belize or going to wherever. They're all playing 7-on-7. At other places, they just don't. Their community is not all bought in. They all want to be bought in when it comes playoff time, but they're not. And I see it day in and day out. Some of these places that should be great, and they have like the right formula of kids, sometimes it's the parents.
Now, do you think, and this kind of a transition, if you will, but do you think some of that might change if we ever get a 7A, like you take some of these schools that, 6A is at 2,000 and up, and you have some schools that are 7,000 plus. You put out, Allen in a 7A and some of these other schools. Do you think that might open up some competition, at least maybe in the 6A level?
I mean, it could, but I mean, just because you got a ton of students, and that does help, doesn't mean you're going to be awesome. I mean, the numbers do kind of vet out that the more students you have, the better you are in sports or band or choir or whatever, just because you have a volume of kids. But you got to develop them. I'm not a big fan of the 7A. I mean, look, it's like the SEC, and this sounds corny because y'all know I'm an SEC guy, but somebody's got to lose. Like OU and Texas moving into the SEC, it's like a giant super conference. I mean, somebody's got to lose, and I think having some parity is good, stretched across the state, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Josh, I'll come to you. I know you haven't talked in a few minutes, just to get your take on all this. How do we create this kind of parity, if you will?
I mean, I don't know if creating the 7A really creates the parity, honestly. I mean, you would just take your bigger schools up, and then you would have the same numbers, you would have the same suspects in making deep playoff runs. You'd have your Duncanvilles, you'd have your DeSotos, you'd have your Allens, you'd have all those teams, because they're like the culture's set. It takes time. These cultures have been set in stone, right? Like Katy, if you think about Katy, back into the early 90s, they hadn't won a state championship since like 1956 or something. It was in the 50s or 60s. And then they win one in 97, and then they get rolling, right? And then they're just like boom, 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 boom. Now they've got 9. North Shore didn't do anything before David Amon got there. Then they get the playoffs. They start making runs. They win one in 2003. Then it was a minute until they won their next one. And then they won one in 15. They won one in 18, and then won one in 19. They've been in the state semifinals 4 straight years. It takes time to build it up, right? It takes time to sustain it. Once you're there and you know how to sustain it, then you're there. So I don't know if does making a 7A bring more parity? I don't know. I mean, I think you have the same teams. Yeah, it might open up a couple spots for some teams to slip up and slide up and take those spots that they had before. But I mean, I don't know if it adds a ton of parity. I think you just have to see what programs are getting built in the right direction.
I will say this. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
What I think also, I think Josh is right, too. And, if you look at it, look how hard it would be to be a high school coach and maintain a program like that. You have to have some history. What's remarkable what Shadow Creek did a couple of years ago. They were a big school with big numbers, and they won a state championship, I think, because – and then the next year they go up to 6A. Anyways, what I'm saying is this. To be a high school coach, you're getting new kids every single year. You're cycling. You're getting reclassified every 2 years. So you don't know what district you're going to be in every 2 years. And you're dealing with some of the most nutty people on the planet, and that's teenage boys. There's so much that can go out of whack that they have to deal with every day that we never hear about. That's why I love high school football coaches, and really the successful ones is like, how do you manage the calamity that goes on every single day? It's awesome. It's chaos.
It is indeed. But hey, you know what? Even though some of these teams may get in a lot year after year, what I can say is it's always exciting, right? I mean, we're all excited for these state semifinals coming up. And so before we leave today, I got to get y'all's thoughts. We don't have to, obviously go through 2A through 6A, but, give me some of your picks for who should we expect to see in state after everything's decided come Wednesday night or Saturday night. Let's go with Josh first. Josh, give me some teams we should expect to see in state next week.
I'm going to go Katy Pato. I think they're there. I think they win over Corpus Christi Flower Bluff. I think Austin Westlake beats Katy. I just think the game Katy had last week with Summer Creek, I think the last 2 weeks they've been kind of exposed a little bit. And I think Westlake's going to take note of that and take care of business. And then I think Crosby, I think their defense is pretty good. I think Crosby's defense doesn't get enough nod. I think Crosby gets through because I think that team, more than anybody, is trying to prove that they can get back to state again because there was so much talk in the offseason. Hey, you lost those 2 superstars in the backfield. That was all your offense. You have no offense coming back. You can't score points. And now they're in the back of the state semifinals. This is a team on a mission. So I'm going to go Crosby. And then, you know what? I'm going to ride with the Tomball Cougars. I think Tomball gets through Den Geyer. I think Cale Helms is an underrated quarterback. I think that defense is playing really well. Keegan Handel, the middle linebacker, he's the son of the defensive coordinator. So who else would you want to have calling your defense on the field than the son of the defensive coordinator that's literally at home with him every night drawing up the defensive game plan and watching film? I think it just works out for them. And I'm going to fall in the same trap that Matt sometimes falls into and I fall into, is you bet against North Shore and they come out and they prove you wrong. I just don't think they have enough offense to beat Lake Travis this year. I think their defense is really good, but I think Lake Travis is a better offensive team. I think Bryce Edmondson is a really good quarterback, and I think Lake Travis gets through.
Matt, how about you? Give me some of these teams we'll be seeing in the state championship next week.
I'm going Lake Travis, Westlake. Man, I'm taking a flyer on Tomball. What the heck? Let's do it, Kevin Flanagan. Let's do this.
Red Nation.
I'm going South Oak Cliff and Pato.
There you go. A couple that haven't been mentioned yet. I want to go China Spring in the 4A realm. Staying in 4A, I'm also going to take Austin LBJ versus Stephenville. You'll see that in the state championship next week. For me, I'm big on Austin LBJ. Yeah, I live in Austin, so this is kind of my one little homer team because, I mean, they had a little bit of heartbreak last year. They lost on the last second field goal to Lindale, and now they don't have to worry about who was it that was coming back? Is it Alito? No, not Alito. Who's the power there? Argyle.
Carthage?
So, no, Argyle. Argyle. Carthage is in, well, they were in D1. Now they're in D2 for last year and this year. So, but those are my picks.
Go
ahead, Josh.
Austin LBJ, they're taking on Stephenville this week?
No, they'll take my pick is that you'll see those two teams next week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I believe Stephenville is coached by former Magnolia coach Sterling Doty, who played at Stephenville and then went on to play at the University of Houston. Then he got into coaching, coached at Magnolia for a few years, got that program really built up. And then I think he played at Stephenville, actually under Art Briles.
Yep, he did.
And I think he won a state championship there. So I think that
he's a great coach.
That could be a cool story, especially if he gets back to state, having played at Stephenville. I think he won a state championship there. He was close to winning one, and was under Art Briles. Went to U of H because Art Briles, I think, went there next. I don't know what the lineage is, but kind of cool story there. Sterling Doty at Magnolia. I need to actually text him.
This will be it'll be a
great guy.
It'll be a good year for LBJ to win because if I'm not mistaken, what I saw is they will be moving up to 5A next year. So now's a chance to get one before you have to kind of reshuffle the deck and figure out what 5A is all about. Josh, go ahead and tell the audience what games you'll be covering this week.
So I will be in Waco, Texas for a third straight weekend. I'm about to have VYPE just buy me an Airbnb in Waco for like 3 weeks every year.
Scott can probably give you the good recommendations.
Hey, he gave me great restaurant recommendations. I ate at George's. That's really good. I ate at man, the pizza place was really good too. I can't remember. I want to say Shorty's. Yeah, Shorty's. That was it. Shorty's pizza was really good. And so anyways, besides that, I'll be there Sunday, or I'll be there Saturday for the Westlake Katy game at 2:00, and then the Tomball Denton Geyer game at 7:00. Of course, you can follow at VYPE Houston on Twitter for live highlights throughout the game, post-game reaction. Of course, the winners will be going to AT&T Stadium. My final pick, I'm going to go South Lake Carroll over Duncanville. South Lake Carroll playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think they go win it all here this year.
That's a good pick right there. Matt, how about you? Are you going to be covering any games this week?
I am not. Josh wore me out last weekend as we were at the TAPS.
Well, we know you got some campus
State Championship.
We know you got some campus stuff to work on as well, so it makes sense. I'll be over in Round Rock Stadium in my neck of the woods. I'll be there covering Lake Travis and North Shore, and I know Dennis will be in San Antonio, I believe, who's playing in San Antonio? Paytow. Paytow is up there in San Antonio, yeah. So stay tuned to all of our accounts, VYPE Houston, VYPE ATX, for all the games breakdowns. We'll have you covered there, and then we'll be back on Monday with the results, and then come Wednesday through Saturday, we'll be some of us will be over at AT&T Stadium to cover 1A through 6A. It's a great week. It's going to be a hectic week for all of us from now until next Saturday. Things are getting crazy. So before we go, I always like to give you guys the chance to plug anything, whether it's, hey, go check out this on our website or whatever. So Matt, give us a little plug if you want to.
Yeah, we're talking National Signing Day. We're going to release our Hot 100 and where they're all going for the greater Houston area. I believe Shannon is rolling out the all-VYPE DFW volleyball team, which, man, they had some great volleyball up there as well. So stay tuned to everything. Hey, we need next time we got to talk about private school and how private school sports in Texas is on the come up.
Hey, couldn't agree with you more. Josh, how about you? Go ahead and plug your stuff up a little bit.
Follow us for playoff coverage this weekend. We'll have every single Houston area game covered. Jackson DePasquale is going up to Bryan on Friday night to cover the Crosby Liberty Hill rematch. He will be there. Last time I went to that game, it was a 62-61 thriller. So hopefully it's a little more calmed down because I'm not there. Maybe less scoring in that game. I feel like whenever Matt and I go to a game, it ends up being some kind of like high-scoring, epic Hail Mary event that happens.
Yes.
Well, and you also had the best seat in the house on that 2-point conversion. I mean, you were right there, right in that hole. Like it was perfect. It was perfect. Great shot there. Also, be on the look. Go ahead.
I should have bought a lottery ticket that night because people don't know how lucky we get when we get those shots. But hey, thanks for running right into the camera.
Exactly. Well, hey, we'll also be having. We usually do our VYPE Awards as one big thing, but this year we're condensing it. We're working on our first little batch right now. Those will be coming out hopefully in the next few weeks, starting with cross country. So be on the lookout for that. Until then, follow us all on all this action this weekend. It's great stuff, people. So if we don't see you there, just follow us online, and if not, hey, we'll see you at the games.